I'm David Kleeman. I'm Senior Vice President of Global Trends for Dubbit, a Leeds-based games studio and research and strategy consultancy. And I'm producing this session, but also moderating it. I want to thank my executive producer, Lydia Mozahebi, who is here with us also. And you'll get to know the panelists as we go on, but I want to start with just a little bit of framing. This session came about in part because being very old in this business, I've seen us go through a lot of stages of how people come in to create content for children, to become children's media professionals, as this gathering is all about. And over to the last several years, I noticed that our generation, our field was getting younger and younger, that not only that, but a lot of the creation was being done by people out of intrinsic interest, out of their own passion for creating and their own desire to make the things that they wanted to do. So I was talking with our CEO at Dubbit, who says that within the decade, 1 million people are going to become professionals earning their living from the metaverse. Now, I should probably stop there and say the metaverse it's not here yet. It's, or maybe it's here in pieces. I've been talking about it lately as rather than the metaverse, we should be talking about the metaphor, that right now there are lots of platforms out there that are designed for users to create the content as well as to consume and play the content. So when I say the metaverse, what I'm really talking about here, and what I think Matt is talking about, is 1 million people are going to be creating content for platforms that didn't really exist more than 5 years ago or so. And 100 million are going to be doing this just for fun. They're because they love to create. And they're all going to become builders. And we're going to have a massive builder economy built around that, whether you're doing it professionally or whether you're doing it just for fun. Now you may wonder, so why do all these young people creating for themselves or creating and sharing their own content, why is that relevant here? Well, that's because we are working with, as well as working sometimes in competition with, these young developers, and they are bringing things to our industry that we didn't have access to before. They'll be using new tools like AI that are going to make content creation even easier. So that 100 million people are going to have tools more powerful than the things we've had for the last 20, 30 years. They don't have a development cycle. UGC creators don't have a development cycle. We think about, you start with an idea and 3 to 5 years later you launch your program. I'm guessing that Becky here wakes up in the morning, says, I'm going to go on, I'm going to play Minecraft, I'm going to have my audience come and watch. And by the end of the day, I've actually got the statistics to say, was it a good day? How'd things go? Should I do something differently? Think about a YouTuber who wakes up in the morning and says, I'm going to make a cooking show. By noon, they've got it on the air. You're on YouTube. By evening, they've got the analytics. So that's going to really challenge us to how to compete with that 3 to 5 year development cycle. It's made the world much more crowded, made discoverability of everyone's content, whether it's user-generated or studio-generated, much more complicated. A lot of the people, it's allowed us to address smaller and smaller audiences and address them more deeply. So people who didn't before have a place to go for the thing that they were passionate about now have not only a creator who's making something that really appeals to them, but a community that they can communicate around that with. And one of the things that we're seeing is the development of a kind of agile set of creators, so that when you create a game, you put together the team that's the best team to make that game. Best designer, best developer, best marketers. And they may come together and they may work for a while and then go off and do other things. And at the same time as they're working for you, they may be working on their own projects as well. So it's become this very dynamic industry. Once we did this, we set out to talk to some of the young builders that we're working with. And I think some of the things that came through that are really interesting. The idea that most began when they were teenagers. Most began creating when they were teenagers. And we'll hear more about that process for how you become a creator in just a minute. Most played for a while or used the platform that they're on for a while before they became creators. Get a sense of how it works. Get a sense of what people like. Their primary drivers were just for fun, but there are certainly ones out there for whom making some money is a good driver. And as with most platforms like this, or as with most industries like this, you have a lot more people who don't make money than who do. So getting into it because you're going to become wealthy is not necessarily the best option, but for a lot of people it works out well. And then a lot of them, as I say, it's intrinsically driven. They say they would keep building even if they weren't making money. I've come to talk about this as the learnification of gaming. You've all heard of the gamification of learning, the idea that you put gaming principles into curriculum. This is the learnification of gaming. This is, I love to play, I want to create the things that I want to play, and therefore I'm going to teach myself how to use the tools, or how to, I love to express myself through video. I'm going to teach myself how to use the tools that I need to do what I want to do. 3 quick examples of people that I've come across that I think are fascinating examples of the learnification of gaming. If you haven't seen the book App Kid by Michael Saymon, it's a fascinating read. He started making app games for the iOS platform at about age 12. He was a millionaire before he was in high school. He was the youngest person ever hired by Facebook at age 17 to be a full-time developer. He's now independent. He's been through several of the big companies, but he now decides he'd rather just build things for himself. But what really struck me in his book was the idea that if he had not been intrinsically motivated, if he had not felt like I've never been bored when I'm coding, he says I never would have done any of this. I would have left it right away. Then there's Preston Mutonga, who makes videos using Lego and puts them up on YouTube. And one of his videos about Spider-Man was discovered by the creators of the most recent Spider-Man movie, and they actually commissioned him to make part of the movie. So here's a 14-year-old who is part of one of the biggest franchises out there. And finally, this is the 11-year-old son of a friend of mine. He's a children and media researcher, actually. The father, not the son, who built the entire village from Encanto in Minecraft. And in case that wasn't enough, he then made, with his iPad, shot for shot, the video of We Don't Talk About Bruno, and put that up on YouTube. That's driven to spend the amount of time you need to create that in Minecraft and then think, but I think I'll even take it a step further than that. So when we poll the young builders that we're talking about, what they tell us is, I want to make what I want to play, what my friends and I want to play. I do something that I'm going to, that's going to engage me with my friends, or I'd rather make things maybe unoriginal now, but they're each adding to the skills that I have that help me become a builder. So just to close out, it's these people that we're talking about, these young people, and the young people we have with us today, and the people that they're working with, who are going to build the forthcoming metaverse, who are going to be the ones who are going to turn it from a lot of scattered pieces into a huge community, into a huge set of worlds that are interconnected. And me personally, as I say, I'm very old, but I'm really excited about this. So let me get started with the panel. And the way I've laid it out is I want to have a conversation each with our 2 young creators, and then bring in the people who they're working with in taking that next step into joining kind of the bigger professional ranks. And this is our panel here. I'm going to start with Becky Ammon, and I'll just do Becky for the course of the panel. But let me just play a little sample of your work here.
Wait, how do you say grass?
Grass.
Oh wait, you say grass? Okay, me and Becca are on the same level.
Yeah, both Northerners.
Yeah,
I'm literally Welsh.
Yeah, anything north of Brighton is Northern.
Yeah, right? I'm from the Midlands and I'm considered Northern.
Yeah, Northern, yeah.
No, I don't talk like
Wales.
that.
Excellent. So let me ask you, I mean, first of all, I'm amazed at the ability to play and talk and manipulate at the same time. So that's quite a skill. How did you get started? Did you start as a gamer and then decide I want to?
Yeah, well, I've been gaming for most of my life, pretty much. And I was gaming on PC for, I don't know, the last probably 10, 12 years. And yeah, for the longest time, I just enjoyed playing games. That was just what I liked to do. That's my free time was always just gaming, playing games. I mostly played Minecraft. That's like my main game that it's my favorite game. Enjoyed the most. It wasn't until it was like lockdown, really. A lot of people started in lockdown, and I was just working at an office, and then suddenly I wasn't working at an office anymore. I was at home, and I had an extra couple hours a day, pretty much, and I just decided I wanted to kind of just do gaming, but actually just put it out into the world. That was sort of how I got started in the first place. It was that kind of time thing. It was a hobby. It was like I was like, oh, I have time for a new hobby. I can start creating and start putting stuff out there. And then I was like, I love this. It's suddenly like, whoa, I actually really love doing this. And this was when I had, well, I mean, for a good month or so, it was 0 people watching anything that I did. And for months after, it was 5, 10, 20, 50, and then it was sort of like 100. And then I got to a point where I was like, okay, hang on, this is like a thing. I'm making money. It's become more than just a hobby. And I sort of then took the risky decision to then leave my job that I was in, which is copywriting, so in marketing. And I just went, I'm going to just full send this. And that was at the end of 2020. So I've been doing this for 2.5 years now, full time, and 3 years, just over 3 years, like in total. And now I'm getting, a lot more eyes on it as well.
Do you know how those first people discovered you? How they, in a crowded marketplace?
It's a difficult one. It's kind of the big question when it comes to becoming a creator and becoming like sort of breaking out. It's some of it's luck. Unfortunately, it's really annoying because a lot of people ask me like, oh, how do you X, Y, Z, and I'm like, luck, I guess. It's quite difficult. Minecraft at the time was a very rapidly growing niche. It was a game that was getting a kind of second wind. It had been out for a very long time, was very big, and then it had a bit of a lull, and then in 2020 lockdown, it kind of resurged again, and I kind of was sort of caught in that upward, I don't know, spiral. It was quite quick. But yeah, initially it was just consistency and just putting out content all the time and just hoping something would stick,
And you obviously had the Minecraft skills. How did you learn the video skills and the?
Yeah, I think when I went into it, I didn't realize how many different skills you need to do content creation if you're doing it on your own. You play games, but then you have to figure out the software side. So you got to know a fair bit about how to use a computer, which a lot of people. It's quite getting into like the sort of tech side of it. Luckily, I had a bit of a tech background, so I was able to get started with that. But then it's like audio engineering. All of a sudden, you're kind of EQing a microphone, and you're like, I don't know how to do that. It's all very much like self-led learning as well. A lot of YouTube, a lot of watching other content that people have made, and then just learning straight off of that.
And did you have a group of other gamers that you either played with or who helped you kind of develop those skills?
I sort of, when I just started, I kind of just made sure to just try and make friends with people. It's really important to kind of create, and everyone calls it networking, and I don't really like that because it's more just making friends and they all like what you like, and you actually, I've met some of my absolute best friends doing this, and you could describe us as colleagues, but it's a bit of a weird one. But yeah, no, very important to have other people around you and just kind of bounce things off of them as well.
Do you think that's unique to what you're doing? Is that it's not colleagues, it's not networking, but it's really just we all share a passion, and so we all want to be together and trade tips.
I think it's just in that creative space, and when it has to start from a hobby, it has to start from a place of actually wanting to do it. I think, and there's always this kind of odd crossover between, like, I've got best friends that I'm also kind of competing against all the time as well. So it's kind of, but I think that makes it almost stronger, because we have to have quite, like, harsh conversations sometimes. But I think that's quite unique to what I'm doing.
And you said you had been in marketing before. Do you bring some of those marketing skills to?
Sometimes I was doing copywriting, so sometimes it goes into the social media or the if I'm writing a description on YouTube or something. But it's I think mostly it's just been what I've learned over a few years of doing it.
And we're going to come back in a few minutes to what you're doing with the Monterey team, but how did you come to join the team?
Well, I was kind of in a position where I have an established audience, an established way of making my content, and I was sort of open and looking to go a bit further and turn it more into a kind of like reliable professional like career, because it was still just kind of me sitting and talking at my computer a lot. So I think I got in contact with Twitch, and I worked with Twitch a little bit, and then they put me in contact with Bron and Elspeth at Monterey. So yeah, and they like the look of me, I think.
And we will come back to the two of you together in just a few minutes. First, I want to turn to Marcel for a few minutes, and I want to thank Nettie and Joe, who are in the front row here helping interpret for Marcel. Marcel, how did you get started making games? Did you get started playing or making?
Okay, so I started playing with Roblox and making games in 2015, and I was with some of my deaf friends. And kind of moving forward, they asked to try and work together and develop our games. And so the three of us were co-workers, and we work closely with community-based games. And we were hosting small events every weekend by posting times and dates on the group feeds and messages on the wall page, and group message members were growing. And when the people won the events, the group rank got promoted. And Roblox was given, it was a virtual currency as a reward. And the group members, they really liked it. And it just kept growing and growing. So then one of us on the group account, he was the ownership, and he wasn't really interested in doing it anymore. So he didn't want to carry on. So I thought to myself, well, maybe I could take over, because he didn't have enough time, and so he decided to shut his side of activities down. So there was nothing really that I could do there, so I decided to put myself into making more games within the Roblox, invited them to co-work with me, and then they joined my group, and so I had control of it.
And I apologize. I was in such a hurry to start talking that I forgot to play your show reel. So let me do that now. Do you remember the first game that you made?
Yes, I do. My first public game I made was Obby King Remastered, and it was a tournament game where the players had to compete between each other, and it was active since 2017, and it was designed with obstacles, and it was very, very active.
So you started playing in 2015 and made your first games in 2017. So you'd been playing for a couple of years. And
yeah, so I started learning coding by myself and building. And then, I was sort of looking at all the creative side of Obby King. And then if I struggled or anything, I'd look on websites, go on YouTube, and it helped me improve myself. I thought, I enjoy playing that. And it kind of encouraged me to continue to carry on like that. And so, I sort of carried on from school and college, and I was really interested. And it just started growing out there in the community, really.
As I understand the tools for making Roblox games, and there are very simple ways of doing it, sort of using predetermined objects, or there are very deep ways of doing it, using the Lua language. How did you start to deepen your knowledge of all the different tools you could use?
So really, I started to do all my coding and everything. It was a bit more like trial and error, really. Whether things failed or it's successful, and then I would look at other development websites and browse on how to do things. And people who were in similar situations, so we talk on developer forums, with other creators who had the same experiences. And then we'd get answers and solutions. And so that we were helping each other sort of fix things and learn new tools. And so through that, we were getting experience and sharing our ideas together. And so, there were a lot of people sort of in the Roblox community, and we all sort of got together and were supporting each other.
The company you were describing before is Tripolis Games. That's your own company. And how many people are part of your team now?
So at the moment, I've got 2 people. One is part-time and one is full-time. And so there's the 3 of us in the team at the moment.
And do you specialize in a particular kind of game, or how do you decide what to make as a... Yeah, do you specialize in a particular kind of game, and how do you decide what to make as Tripolis?
So when I set up Tripolis Game, I was continuing sort of improving my Obby King and setting up my company, and then I got some other games sort of involved, and I wanted to sort of develop and get bigger. And so through doing Tripolis, I started learning and training and teaching other people to give ideas for them to develop and create a community. And we'd talk about what we'd like, and I'd ask them for feedback on my ideas, and we discuss it with each other. And then, so basically it's my ideas, and I just get lots of feedback from other people.
And Becky talked a little about the sort of organic growth of the audience, and also the combination of using your friends to help grow things. How did your games catch on? How do you promote the games that you make?
So really, I haven't had to really advertise at all. I mean, it's since 2017 upwards to now, really. I think most of it, Obby King's been out there and lots of people have enjoyed it, and it's just developed and got bigger. And then it just went through word of mouth. People were like, oh, come and play this game, and then they'd join in. And, I've been really lucky. It's just every day there's just more and more players. It's just getting, I'm really happy with that because it's just getting bigger and bigger. And so, with the Roblox and the Obby King, it just sort of goes together. And then every sort of few weeks I get more people and they join in, and that's it really. That's how it sort of developed and moved forward. I think with Roblox, obviously they've got their own organisation, their design and their interest. But, sort of other people, they love having challenges, they love having games, and they love having trophies and things like that and awards. So that encourages them. So with the Roblox having their awards and playing their games, they were saying, oh, I was really interested in that, and they want to play something again. So it just sort of develops more and more from them, and they remember things, and that's how it goes forward. But sort of recently, I've sort of set up, and I can see a younger audience that are more interested, and they've been going on YouTube, TikTok, social media. So it means that there's more of a creative team and more creative people that get more and more interested, and so I think that's moving it into the future. I think definitely that's the way. You don't really need to advertise, it just goes through all those social medias, etc.
And again, I'll come back to you and Steph in a little bit, but how did you connect up with Dubbit? How did you become part of the Dubbit team?
Okay, so there was a recruiter who contacted me through LinkedIn. And they just said, are you interested in this role for Dubbit? So I thought, oh, I'll have a look at it. And so I had a conversation with them, and that was remote, and they gave me an interview. And then it was like a formal meeting, and then they were talking about the technology, and they got me to do some tests, working on it to see how I was going, and if I could work, and we both gelled together, and that was it, really.
So let me come back now to Brenna Monahan and Becky. Brenna, was Monterey always, was it formed to be focused on influencers more than a traditional agency working with people in other platforms?
Yeah, absolutely. So me and Elspeth, we had backgrounds working with digital talent specifically. So I started at a company called Gleam Futures, which was mainly focused on big YouTube talent, I manage some comedy talent, fashion talent. One of my clients, Casper Lee, he ended up having a show with BBC Worldwide, which we took on tour. And I think that project specifically made me realise that it's not just, we're not capped at what we can do in YouTube, that there's all of this IP that can be developed with talent, and it's about finding, it's about meeting in the middle with them. So it's not about bringing them a format and trying to, push them into it. It's finding something collaborative. So I then left Gleam and I went to work at BBC Studios. So I was developing IP specifically for digital first talent, and that's when I met Elspeth. She was at Endemol, and she was, her role was managing director at Cut and Mustard, which was quite innovative. They were producing live tours with big talent. I didn't have any experience in gaming, but I knew that gaming was the category to be in digital. And she was producing Dan TDM's tour, and I just thought, God, this guy is a total icon. What is going on here? And I read a lot of books. I was kind of immersing myself in the whole world of like the CAAs and the WMEs, and I thought, why doesn't that really exist for these big kind of legendary gamers? And I think it was because a gamer doesn't really, I don't think they really want to be part of a big Hollywood machine. They are, creatives, they're producers, they need a really bespoke style of management. So I kind of approached Elspeth. Turned out she was pregnant, and she was like, oh, I actually need someone to manage Dan. And I thought, yes, please. So I then managed Dan for 6 months, and I just got a real kind of deep dive into the world of Minecraft. And there's this intersection, I think, with Minecraft and like Gen Z and even, children's content. And I just thought, God, there's so much that could be done here to develop talent, produce things with talent. So yeah, we kind of built Monray as a hub, as a real kind of, development home for talent. We come to this as genuine collaborators with them, and that's kind of where Monray Productions came about. So we're not just managing the talent, we also produce ideas with them. So yeah, it was just an accumulation of everything that we kind of experienced in this sort of quite niche industry. And we've been going for 3 years now.
And compared to the sort of more traditional agencies that you've been talking about, how does the work of Monray differ because it's starting from digital first, because it's starting from influencers, from creators?
Well, I guess it's I think we can be more bespoke in terms of what we do. I think if you're with an agency, you're kind of one of hundreds. Our roster is we have 9 clients, Becky being one of our newest talent. We like to offer them a really high level of service. I think that's what they deserve. They're creators themselves. We don't want to come into this trying to educate them on what they need to be. I think they're already creating stuff that is producing a lot of revenue. So that's one of the things that we kind of recognised is a lot of talent come into this very young, very naive. They don't understand about tax or contracts or what even IP is. There's kind of an unspoken thing with gaming creators that's just, Minecraft are happy for them to use their content. There's no license that's exchanged, but there's stuff that can happen that, they might create IP that goes beyond that game, and that's sort of what we're there to do. We bring publishing in, we bring live events in, we bring broadcast in, so we are there to, I guess, showcase what are all the things on top of gaming that are available to them.
So Becky, what has Monray brought to you? What kinds of ideas that you had not conceived of before that?
I think for, up until I was working with them, I sort of just assumed that my brand is entirely online and it's entirely within my own space, within my own channels, and seeing what Monray are doing with other creators that they have on their roster, and we just had lots of chats about various things and ways that I could expand into whatever I wanted to do, given the time, and so it's been really interesting to learn about the kind of more sort of wider world of sort of other media, because it's quite insular, and I only talk to other people that do exactly what I do, really. So it's kind of expanding that.
What kinds of things are you doing now? Are there television options? Are there books? What would you love to create?
I mean, there's just sort of sort of pipe dream stuff at the moment. I'm still in a growth phase, really, where I want to become more established. And so it's kind of like we're kind of planning for the future. We're looking at maybe expanding into like vodcasting, that kind of thing. But yeah, there's a lot of things that I want to do, given the time.
Yeah, I should say, someone like a Dan, he's been going for 10 years. He's got 27 million subscribers. It takes a massive audience to convert. I'm such a big believer in developing new talent. Like, it's a really big passion of mine, because I think talent need time to grow. I think what's frustrating is a lot of the times a talent will sign to an agency and they're just seeing them as like a cash cow, and it's just like that's not really the way it works, because also a pandemic can happen, commissioners can stop commissioning, brands can stop spending, and like that money stops flowing through, and actually people need time to adapt to that and evolve. And I guess we have the balance of having very big headline talent, but also I think developing talent need just as much support. So it's about recognizing that not everybody's just going to turn around like the biggest new IP in a week. It's it's about confidence and trying different things. So
do you bring? You said you have 9 people on the roster. Do you bring them together? Do you arrange collabs between them? Do you bring them together just to exchange ideas, or is it more individualized?
Sometimes. I mean, Dan historically has never really collaborated. He's a very kind of, he does everything solo, but we managed Tommy Innit, who's another big Minecraft creator. We just produced his first UK tour, and there were 2 other YouTubers/streamers who were part of that show. I really wanted Becky to be part of it. For whatever reason, that didn't happen, but maybe when we go to America. But yeah, that's, I think, if you've got bigger talent, you always want to try and bring in new faces, and that's kind of historically that's maybe what big record labels have done. They've put like smaller acts on to open the stages, and because that's the only way that you can really grow, I guess.
And so you've got an audience here of children's media creators of all different types, whether from the biggest broadcasters to individual producers and such. What do you want them to know about how to work with you, how to find an influencer or find a talent that they would love to work with you to develop?
I mean, an email. I love getting proactive ideas. I'm meeting someone after this who is developing an idea, an animation, and looking for some voice talent. And that's kind of quite a big thing that we're looking at the moment, is trying to bring recognizable voices from online into animation projects. I love a proactive idea. I think a meeting can only come into fruition sometimes 6 to 12 months later. I guess what I'd say is we specialize probably in, brand-friendly gaming talent. We've just announced our 4th commission with Sky Kids. So we make one of their kind of headline shows, Let's Game, that features all the biggest YouTube gaming talent. And we think that if we put a client in front of you, that they're going to deliver kind of a premium job. So if you're looking to work with exciting voices who appeal to certain demographics, what I should say is in Minecraft, there's definitely 2 different camps. So Dan TDM's probably more children's, kid-friendly, whereas Becky appeals to a teenage audience, a bit edgier and, but, still, I would say that Becky and kind of Tom's generation, they probably were the kind of like MTV sort of demo of yore. And I think it's just finding, ways to meet in the middle with them, because they're really creative people. So don't be afraid to have them as maybe, a producer on something or writing. There's a lot of talents that they have that isn't just commenting on YouTube or Twitch.
So, and Becky, I started by talking about people who are doing what you're doing don't have a development cycle. It doesn't take you 3 years to get something. What is your process? Do you literally wake up in the morning and just say, I'm going to play today, or?
Yeah, so it depends what's going on. I think that what I do is much more reliant on what's currently being consumed, like what the trend is. Like a lot of people that consume content now have a much shorter attention span and are much quicker to kind of switch from thing to thing. So I have the, if say a new game is getting released in 3 weeks, and then so they drop a trailer, and I can watch the trailer and talk about it that day, and then I can, if I want to turn that into some shorts content, so like short form YouTube shorts or TikTok, I can do that day if I wanted to. And then when it comes out, I can play it the day it's released, and I've already, that content is live and happening, and people can watch and ask me questions about what I'm doing the day that it comes out. And then while it's still being done, within the week, I can have a YouTube video out on that game. For it. This is just an example, but obviously after like a couple months, that'll sort of die down. Like people won't be as interested anymore, and then I can just move on to the next thing, which I think is kind of where the advantage is in. Yeah, there isn't really a development cycle, especially because I focus on live content. So it's literally just like I go live and I'm already making the content as I'm doing it. That content is already finished.
And it seemed from the reel like you're talking about all different kinds of things.
Yeah,
while you're playing, it's really just about being.
It's constant. It's constantly kind of creating. So I can just wake up in the morning and go, oh, cool. That's I don't know. Recently, Minecraft released a new major update. So that was like a kind of cool. That'll drop it in the afternoon today, and I can immediately stream it and show people what's in it. Whereas, like, I think if it was longer, I would immediately miss that boat where people wanted to see the new content there. So it's very, very quick.
Good. Let me come back to Steph Whitley and Marcel. Steph is the chief of staff at Dubbit, and so is in a lot of ways responsible for building this roster of young talent that is working with our established game. Dubbit's been in the games business since 1999, so we have a lot of people who've been making games for a long time, and a lot of people who are now have been making games for a long time but are becoming professionals at it. Can you just talk a little bit about that process of realizing that there's a lot of talent out there that we should be bringing in?
Yeah, I mean, I think for us it was, I remember it was just before lockdowns, and the research team came to us and said, we really need to talk about this platform called Roblox, and it was this huge platform that was completely open, and we kind of coined the term back then. We saw it as the YouTube of games, to help people kind of understand that anyone could be creators. And we met people like Marcel and different, builders, as we call them. Not everyone's a developer on Roblox. You can have creators or builders or developers and everything kind of on that spectrum. And then the challenge really for us, it was we saw the huge opportunity where, these builders were creating unofficial branded experiences on Roblox. There was, we had a look at the platform. There was something like, thousands and thousands of experiences focused on Lego, but nothing created by Lego. And so it was that demand for engaging with branded content, just like there is on YouTube and other platforms. There's demand there. So there was a real opportunity for brands to create their own official owned experience, to just kind of extend that relationship that they had with new users. You could kind of previously, if you wanted to activate in gaming, you had to do some sort of deal with the big AAA studios, and now it isn't like that. You can reach that audience at digital scale just by getting on the platform.
And even more so than that, 10 years ago, if you had built a Lego game on whatever platform, Lego probably would have sent you a cease and desist letter.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And now they've turned around, a lot of companies have turned around completely. Lego's position seems to have been, as long as you don't violate the brand principles, as long as you don't do anything too far outside, it's promotion for us.
And some brands are a little bit more, some brands will see it as fan art, essentially, well, they're kind of almost brand ambassadors at that stage, but there are others where they might have, this is monetizing, maybe we might need to have a little bit of a think about this. Or there was one that I always giggle about this with Peppa Pig. There's a game, it's experience on Roblox called Piggy. And rumour has it was based on a murderous Peppa Pig. And so now when you search Peppa Pig on Roblox, nothing really comes up. But things like that where, brands and IP, they have they have abilities to be able to be like, look, you know, I'm not quite comfortable with where that is, you know, my brand direction, I feel like that's not where I position my brand. But others are very, very open to it.
So not a surprise to anyone here that the key for Gen Z, see, I've learned how to say Z while I'm and Gen Alpha is authenticity. Young developers, I think, because they're platform native, bring authenticity. How do you knit them together with the more traditional game developers?
Good question. I mean, you know, we have, as you said, you know, we have producers, designers, developers who, you know, their bread and butter was mobile apps and mobile games. And then we kind of had this new platform. And it was the challenges of the platform and the differences between, you know, having to spend on mobile apps and games. We used to spend so much time thinking about onboarding and making sure that it was easy for users to get through it. And Roblox, completely different. You'll watch YouTube to figure out how to play it. If you haven't got their attention in 30 seconds, there's so much content that's available for free, you'll lose them. And it's things like that we had to, the first Roblox experience we created, you know, when you landed in the experience, on Roblox you all have an avatar that you spend time, money on customizing, making your digital persona, essentially. And when you landed into the first Roblox experience we created, we took over players' avatars and put them into being the character from the brand. Big mistake. Don't do that on Roblox. Let them be their own avatar. Let them be their own persona. So it was things like that, and all of a sudden we were like, right, we're going to have weekly stand-ups with technical Roblox team and also design and also creatives. So there's kind of 3 different strands where, you know, we learn from each other, we challenge, and you kind of, you know, you talk about your innovations that week, things like that. But very, very different platforms, very, very different ways of working. One of the top tips I'd say is, especially with Roblox, release as fast as you can. Very, very forgiving community of alpha and betas. Even in the name, so many experiences are really, they're in beta forever because they're constantly being iterated, updated. Get it in front of players, test it, talk to them, build your Discord communities, really kind of hone in on that willingness from the community to help shape the experiences that are being created by more professional studios.
And it's interesting, that's the game side of what I was talking about with the development cycle, is development cycle is get it out there fast, but then the game side is, in video, once you've got it locked down, it's done. In games, it's always changing, always evolving. Yeah. And how do you go about finding young talent like Marcel? How do you...
We built a developer liaison team. So things like Roblox Developer Conference, RDC, you know, they have specific events. We've built Discord communities as well. Roblox has group system, which Marcel was talking about earlier, you know, where groups can grow. And really things like Twitter, YouTube, just not being afraid to kind of directly go out, contact them. We have now a network of over 100 developers who are native to the Roblox platform. They own and operate their own hugely, hugely popular Roblox experiences. So we've kind of got them as partners where we can then, you know, some brands, I mean, more often than not now, brands will come to us or agencies and say, you know, I want to start my Roblox strategy. I know that I want to be on this platform. It's where my audience is. I want to extend that brand experience, but I might not have the, you know, the bigger budgets to create a standalone experience that is that experience as a service, the constant updates, the, you know, the iterating. And we'll often say, well, we've got this network of 100 developers who are all open to having brands integrate into their worlds and their experiences. So you benefit from, you know, some are getting tens of millions of plays every month. It's just, it's incredible. And, you know, we can put brands in via a branded level or, you know, branded area. We can code little mini pop-up experiences that hang off the developer's game. You know, we connect our partners to branded hubs and create some sort of meta experience where you're going from a hub into different partner games, collect something, return to the hub, go back into a different game. Again, just thinking around how to add the most value to the Roblox player base and help them find different experiences, but also help our partner developers monetize and work with the biggest brands.
And Marcel, what's the biggest difference between creating for Tripolis and creating for Dubbit? What's the biggest difference between creating for Tripolis, for your own company, and creating as part of the Dubbit team?
Okay, so I've worked with Dubbit for over 2 years now, and I think obviously they connect with the outside world, etc., and other companies involving in Roblox, and the clients decide what they want and they discuss it with them, and so they work together and they give them that service. But with my Tripolis company, my own game, I decide what I want to do and I release it and I've got control of it, and so I have my own budget and I get my team together, and that's what I really like. So it's completely opposite to Dubbit, but I enjoy both. I love the learning experience that I get from Dubbit and obviously developing myself along the way.
Has it been hard to learn to be on somebody else's schedule?
Yeah.
Steph, you were gonna say something.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's completely right. You know, I think that sometimes the bridge. I mean, we've got over 20 years of working with the biggest brands, so you know we're very used to things that, you know, things like account management, even kind of pitching in, you know, sales pitches, presentations, and there's also that kind of bridge that we can. You know, if we've got creators that might want to have a brand integrate into their world, we facilitate things like the contracts, the legals, you know, the IP, all of that kind of thing that maybe smaller studios don't necessarily have covered. And yeah, I think, you know, just building that community. Look, we want to see all of these builders work with the, you know, the biggest brands in the world. That's kind of what we want, you know, for the future. And providing those communities of advice and how to actually, you know, really connect and understand how to work with big brands and lots of different stakeholders in various points, that can be, you know, where we can bridge that gap as well.
So let me ask one question for all of you, and then I'm going to turn to the audience. So get your questions ready. There will be a mic going around. For all of you, do things keep coming closer together? Does user-generated content just keep getting better and better to the point where it's hard to tell what's made by a studio and what's made by an individual, where kids, young people just find the thing that they're passionate about, they don't care who made it? Do you think that's the future direction? Or?
Yeah, I think there's a level of production value has gone up a lot in user-generated content in recent years. I think like there's always going to be people that just want to make and that just want to put stuff out there, and they don't mind like how it performs or how far it goes. They just like, I want to put something out. But I think that there is now this kind of expectation of a certain level, like a base level of quality, and whether even just the raw like video and audio and how that's produced. It's like, you know, you've got people making like, you know, definitely studio like TV level stuff and just putting it on YouTube.
And I think that's important what you're saying, because you're creating better technical quality, but you're still being yourself. You're not saying, oh, I've got to add
still got that
special
authenticity
effects
that people want, but it's
the authenticity coming back again. Yeah. Good.
One of the things that we find with the shows we're making through Monray Productions is this like interesting sort of value exchange. So between the broadcasters, the talent involved, and the gaming publishers, who cares about what? So what we've struggled with talent is saying, well, why do I need to be on a TV channel when my views are, you know, this amount on YouTube or Twitch? But that is evolving now. So we find that actually, depending on where they want their career to go, they see the value in being, you know, attached to a big broadcaster. Gaming publishers now, where before we wouldn't have been able to get the license to have them in our shows, because it's attached to big talent, that's kind of the value exchange for the gaming publishers. So on this series in particular, it's called Let's Game World Builders, so it's all world building games, and we've managed to get Minecraft to agree to be in the show. And, you know, we've had a relationship with Minecraft for years, and they've never been interested in collaborating with a traditional broadcaster. And so to have them be a part of that is huge. And I think it's just because they recognise that the landscape is changing.
So it's not just the attachment to the big talent, it's also, wait a minute, our audience is across all these things.
Yeah, I mean, we've managed to get them involved in the YouTube component of the show, so we have, you know, all of the series on Sky, which is behind a paywall, but I think for a Minecraft, they want to be available to view by anyone, so that's always been the kind of hurdle, is they don't want to be behind a paywall. But yeah, that was a really exciting win for us.
Steph, do you see things coming closer together? Or?
I do. I think, you know, especially with the platforms that we're working on, you know, your Roblox, Fortnite, your Spettos, and all of these new ones that are coming up every day. I think that, you know, especially with things like Roblox, Fortnite, and Minecraft, there has been these builders that have been working on these platforms way before even we came in 4 years ago, or whatever, however many, you know, years ago it was. Everyone starts with that level, that those same tools, that level playing field. I think you can bring kind of legacy design ideas and obviously things like, you know, creative skills. But when you're all kind of starting from that level playing field, but you've got loads of builders that have been doing it for years and years and years, you're almost starting at a little bit of a disadvantage. You've got to catch up with that. And I think that, you know, as more brands come onto these platforms, we talk about it as, you know, that flywheel. You know, the more creators, you know, bring more brands, bring more players, bring more money, more creators, and it just kind of takes off like that, really.
Keeps going. Marcel, same for you. Do you see it growing closer?
So, yeah, thinking about Roblox from a long time ago with the old generation, you know, obviously there were the same processes and tools, etc., and they were quite easy and people used to play it. But now as you move forward and the younger generation, and there's more tools out there, it's developing much more and it's improving, and all the design, everything's becoming more, you know, it's sort of started to have a generation kind of gap. And so obviously you've got the older generation experience and the younger people that are a bit more flexible and more influencers, and, you know, and with the gaming, you want people to keep interested. So some people like to enjoy the same game, but obviously now as time's moving forward and all the design is changing, I just think it doesn't matter about, you know, age anymore. It's about your community and who's getting involved, and obviously it's not such a centralised platform anymore, and the audience is just growing and growing. And so I think, you know, with everybody talking and companies setting up and continue in playing their games and getting their budgets together, you know, the generation is changing and it's becoming easier, and it's good for more individuals to do their own gaming and set up, and, you know, for example, like Spetto, etc. Yeah, so, and people, you know, we're catching up more and we're getting on quicker, we're moving forward a lot quicker now. And lots of people, you know, love gaming. And so really, you know, some people just want to have a bit more, they want more challenges. They want, you know, they like to play a game, move on to the next one. And so, you know, lots of people got different values and they develop even more and more.
So now you're suddenly looking back at these 12, 13, 14-year-olds and going, hey, wait a minute, you're coming up on me here. So.
Yeah, definitely.
Do we have questions from the audience? Yes, down here. Do we have a mic? All the way over in the corner.
Hello. So, quick one for Becky Aman. So you know that it started sort of as a hobby and, you know, intrinsically driven. So to that point, do you ever have it where you know you wake up and you're not in the mood to, you know, create something that day? Do you ever feel that pressure of, oh, I have to create, I'm going to lose followers, you know?
Yeah, I think that there's a point that's reached where if you start to treat it, like if you start to kind of like, okay, well, this is now my full-time thing, this is now like my job, essentially, it does become a job. So there's some changes which I've like noticed is that like I don't do a lot as much gaming outside of when I'm making content anymore. And there are days where I'm like, you know, in an ideal world, I would prefer to not do something today. But it's I treat it like a job then in return, where it's like, usually once I've started, I'm all good. Like I'm like, oh yeah, I still love it. Basically, it's not that I don't like it anymore. But yeah, there's those days where it's like, not sure if it's like the day to day, and if it's if it's really not the day, I just don't do it that day, which is kind of where I get some flexibility to do that. But then there's just other times where it is my job, it is what I do, so I just do it anyway, like I would any other job, really.
Thank you.
Other questions? Yep, we've got one just across the aisle. Oh, there's a mic there already.
Have publishers of children's stories adapted any of their titles to platforms such as Roblox and Minecraft? And if so, how do they engage users to participate in the story worlds?
Steph, that seems like a great one for...
I think it's... I mean, one of the first questions that we'll always ask is what is the goal of getting on these platforms? Is it to build audience? Is it to drive awareness? Is it to promote off-platform? Whatever that is, there's different strategies for that. I think that, again, being authentic to your story and your IP, Roblox is an incredible storytelling tool. You even have a genre, which is story, where you can take players on journeys, have them make choices in multiplayer and social environments. It's all 3D. It's very much like you're dropping them into a 3D narrative, really. So I think if you have a strong kind of brand ethos, you understand what you are wanting to make the player feel, what journey you want to take them on, then really kind of connecting with a designer, a studio who understands the platform, how best to kind of translate that into these different platforms. Because again, Roblox, Minecraft, Fortnite, very, very different platforms with very, very different audiences. And I think that, I don't know if Marcel would agree, but I think Roblox as a storytelling tool it's slightly underappreciated at the minute. Not many brands have really, they've come onto it, they've created gaming experiences where there's the multiplayer and the social at the core, but there isn't that kind of narrative driven experiences.
So I think my favorite Dubbit story about exactly what you're describing is one of the first things we built was for a new IP that had come from a book and wasn't a widely popular book. It was a much loved book, but not widely popular. And they had gotten a deal to do a television special and then a series for Warner. And they had us build just a very small Roblox experience, not a game per se, that allowed you to immerse yourself in the world of this these stories. And we spent a very small amount to launch it and or they spent a very small amount to launch it and to market it. And on the first weekend, we had tens of thousands of players come into this space. And because they'd never seen it before, they had this response of, what is this? Where can I find more of this? Where did this come from? And by the end of the weekend, we had people making YouTube videos of their experience in the space, saying, "Does anyone know where to find more of this?" So
they thought it was a official event that Roblox was promoting because of the look and feel of it. And again, we'd launched it to get some initial feedback. Didn't quite expect it to be picked up on YouTube and other platforms where we hadn't even really put any gamification in it. It was just a world that you were running around. You had little tiny mini games, but it was this, as you say, where can I find out more about this? What is this? And then, it launched on Warner.
Very good. I think we have hit the limits of our time. So let me first of all thank our panel. Thank Marcel, Steph, Bruna, Becky. Thank our interpreters.